What's poppin', guys, and welcome to this exclusive interview with Lynnette and Ivy from Speed Rack, hosted by Flavor Blaster.
Shot.
Everybody!
So hi guys, thank you so much for joining us here on What's Poppin' with Flavor Blaster. Would you like to introduce yourselves and give us a quick introduction to your work within the industry?
Sure, yeah, I can start. My name's Ivy Mix, and right over there, at least in my Zoomosphere, is Lynnette Marrero. We're the co-founders of Speed Rack, an all-female bartending competition and breast cancer charity. And apart from that, for me personally, I own a bar called Leyenda in Brooklyn. Recently wrote a book called Spirits of Latin America, and also opened up a bottle shop called Fiasco. But I've been working kind of in and around the industry for longer than I care to admit, about 16 years.
That's great. And Lynnette, do you want to follow that up?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Ivy said, we're New York City based. This is where we kind of got our start here. I was lucky enough to work at the Flatiron Lounge with one of our mutual mentors, Julie Reiner. From there, I started my own consulting companies. I do currently the bar programs for two Peruvian concepts called Llama Inn and Llama San. And I, do a lot of different brand work and lots of different education stuff, kind of a hodgepodge of things, but really was fortunate over the past year and a half to actually teach everyone in the world how to make cocktails by launching the platform on masterclass.com with Ryan Chetty. So yeah, pretty exciting. That's what we do.
Yes. That's amazing already. There's so much there that I can't wait to unpick. I guess just as a starting point then, looking at you guys as bartenders, you both just made the Bar World 100 list again. So well done for that. That's amazing. What kind of impact do you think that those rewards and accolades kind of have on you as bartenders and businesswomen?
I mean, I think it's important. What's interesting with those lists, we obviously have seen the 50 best and things like that over the years. I think what we always advocated for in those lists was always equal representation, at least for something that felt like a part of our whole community. And I would actually definitely say Bar World 100, when seeing the list, I think a lot of the new people who were added this year were people who are incredibly talented, who are definitely, making big social movements and making big changes. And it was really great to see that we have managed to find a way that those individuals who are groundbreaking, doing all these things, can be included in the system rather than excluded by it.
No, that's really important. And that inclusivity that you've touched on there is a trending topic, but it is still a big issue. How important do you think tackling these issues is, especially in 2021 after COVID and everything that we've had?
I think it's really important, it's always been important. We've been doing Speed Rack for 10 years. And, after the Me Too movement, I feel like for feminism really had like a revitalization, you know what I'm saying? And then during COVID, and of course, especially in the United States, with the Black Lives Matter movement that started up here, there's a lot of attention that's going towards, hey, maybe the tippy top of this iceberg should look less like a white guy, keep the white guys. I love a lot of white guys, but maybe there should be a little bit of diversification.
Everyone else. Yeah.
And I think it's the demand to diversify, and especially in the era of COVID, where so many people just made their money on the internet.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's really a good thing to try to give more people a broader net to be like, yeah, you don't always have to ask the same 10 people to post about your gin, here's a bunch of other people you can ask. who are just as, or perhaps more, influential. So I think that's a really good thing in the era of COVID.
Yeah. And another thing that you mentioned there, which I think is really important, is the internet and social media. Obviously, that's been growing for a long time, but especially in the past year with lockdown, it's been many people's only form of connection, especially within the bartending industry. So how important do you think social media plays in not only building your own brand, but building, brands within the bartending industry?
We actually did our very first speed rack in Russia this year, and it all came together by us communicating with the team there. One of the women who was involved in putting it on as part of our mentorship program, but we really only met through the internet. And so seeing how it connected, obviously we couldn't get there because of the situation, but we were able to still have that connection, still be a part of it, and still feel the family grow and feel like the movements were able to be shared. So I think that it's, I do think we are growing in that space, and it is important to recognize that that medium has influence, but I think it's also important to then also kind of remember, and I think we were reminded both this year about how much interpersonal connections and being together and keeping your teams together, in real life was also super important. But I found a lot of comfort in connecting with my global friends weekly. Some weeks it was almost like every other day, just to kind of keep connected when this was going on.
Yeah, no, that's great. And one thing that you mentioned there is through social media, the platform that it gives you to run campaigns. So I'm going to use the example of your Monday Offer Making Moves campaign with Speed Rack, which I love. And I watched a couple of those, and I found out that it was about, people who are moving around within the industry and helping those. How important or prevalent do you think that topic is because of COVID?
Huge. I mean, you read or you listen to or whatever, all of the stats about how many people have decided to not re-enter the industry after COVID. I think a lot of people had this realization like, oh, wait, I don't have to work like 65-hour weeks and stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning. And wow.
Oh my God. Wow. Oh my God.
But there are people who have left the front of house bartender part of it, but they still have a lot of interest of being still involved in the industry in some way. And I mean, it's a very large conversation, especially for women in the industry, especially in places that don't offer healthcare, like our lovely mother country here. When it is a serious question of, as women in particular, start getting older, and it's like, oh, am I going to have a child? And if so, there's no such thing as paid time off. And, am I going to have healthcare to do that thing? And I think it was really excellent for us to offer the opportunity, like, hey, if you love this industry, there are so many different facets of this industry that you can still involve yourself in, even if you maybe don't want to bartend 4 nights a week. And I know lots of people now who are bartending like 2 nights a week and then doing something else, and they're a lot, they're happier. And then I also know other people who are like doubling down, are like bartenders for life, like 6 days a week or bust. And that's also good.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that so much. And obviously your work has done so much for women in the industry. What would you say are still the biggest issues facing women in 2021 in the bartending industry?
Access to capital and ownership is still number one barrier. And I think we see that for most marginalized groups who've been kept out of the conversation. And so that equity is still where we need to focus on and really offer partnerships to women to be involved in these spaces. So I think that's going to be the big growth, and that takes time, and that takes systems changing to be able to make sure that they're top of someone's thought process. It's not as and this is where we did a lot with our finance chats as well, was that, we're maybe not as comfortable asking for money or, looking for investors. So starting to break down those barriers, starting to encourage women to be more financially in charge of their future is a part of that. So I think all of those, self-education, and then, obviously increasing confidence and awareness that, people should be thinking about how they balance their investments, and investing in women is a good bet.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we've learned a bit more now about your ideology and about your work within the bartending industry. Now I want to put you guys on the spot. We've got a round of quick fire questions, okay? So
ready.
Not much thinking time, just go for it and see what answers you come up with, okay? So we'll start off quite easy, and then we'll see how we get on, okay? So the first quick fire question is, what is your favorite cocktail?
Martini, 50-50.
Love it. Ivy,
all in a twist.
Yeah, grandma style. I also do love that. Probably a pina colada.
Honestly. Oh, classic. I love it. Okay. So you mentioned one already, Ivy, but what is your favorite local bar, or is there a local bar that you guys would love to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I mean, every single one, but the one on the top of my head is the Long Island Bar, which is a neighbor to Leyenda. It's just an excellent, good
Love
bar.
it. What about you, Lynnette?
Mother's Ruin. I've spent more times in that space, even through the quarantine, perched outside drinking a pitcher of rosé when I couldn't get in, or in a little coffee cup. So
love it. I love it. We'll give them guys a shout out on the screen. That's amazing. Okay, next question is, who or what inspires you most as a person?
Honestly, my niece. My niece is like, she turns 2 in a month, and sometimes I look at the world, I'm like, it is so like I can't even imagine. So I'm like inspired to do better for her. Yeah. So when she grows up, she'll have a better life. Yeah, I love that. Lynnette, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in a lot of ways the same. It's like the future and the excitement of the people who want and to create and share. Like I don't know if there's like some like hidden like teacher mentality in my brain too somewhere, but I love engaging with people who have incredible ideas and are excited about them, and I get excited. And then, so I think that the ideas of people who are coming into all sorts of industries and changing how we're going to be in the next 10, 15 years, I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Okay, what's one unpopular opinion you guys have about the bartending industry?
Well, I mean the shot everybody sort of vibe. I think there, it's we're definitely growing out of it, but I think there's still kind of that, no matter what, there's always a switch that turns on and everyone's just going to start going towards that. And I think maybe now that we're all going home earlier, that helps to reduce that. But that idea that it's the overconsumption is still easy to get involved in when you're around it. So I think that's just something that we are constantly being mindful of and working to change.
That's super important. Ivy, what about you?
I guess my one, the one that comes off the top of my head, which is the point of this, is I think that you don't have to buy $20,000 worth of fancy scientific equipment to make a good cocktail. I think it's perfectly easy enough to just make a good cocktail.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. You guys have survived the quick fire questions. So well done. You can breathe again now. Okay. So the last thing that we want to do with you guys is our feature called Poppin' or Droppin'. Essentially, we have a feature called Poppin' or Droppin', where I'm going to supply you guys with some of the most trending topics within the bartending industry currently. And I want you guys to tell me whether you think they're popping, so whether you think they're worth the hype, there's something that everyone should be paying attention to, or whether you think they're dropping, they're overrated, and you think that, there's more important things to be taken care of. So without further ado, the first topic is social media.
Dropping.
Just straight out the bat, dropping.
Oh man, I'm gonna keep it as poppin' for now.
I think to be fair, that reflects how it can be good and it can be bad. Number 2 is activism within the industry.
Poppin.
Poppin, definitely, I agree. Bubble tea.
Dropping.
Nah, dropping, yeah.
You're not a fan. To be fair, I can agree with that. I'm not a fan of bubble tea. Okay, so this next one I think is pretty obvious, but sustainability in bartending. Poppin, definitely. And off the back of that then, can you think of any tips? So say if I'm a small business owner and I want to make my business more sustainable, but I don't know how, because obviously it is quite time consuming and still quite expensive to make those changes. Have you guys got any little tips or advice that you can give to those people to make their business more sustainable?
I think that it's best. It's very nice if you're like reusing your old spent lime wheels. Congratulations if you're indeed doing that.
Yeah.
The big thing is really to demand more of the brands that you're purchasing from. So asking and getting really clear answers from your distributors and from your producers, how their things are made, what their carbon footprint is. People have this information. And if you are an educated buyer, we can actually change the people that matter, which are the big marks, to change the ways of making what they're making.
Yeah. No, that's really good advice. Lynnette, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of things may seem, I think to think that being sustainable, is a ton of hard work and very expensive might be a bit of a misnomer, because I do think that there are small ways you can change your behavior that can make a big impact. So if we talk about things like just reducing your waste, like Ivy said, there's lots of ways to actually use some of those sustainable techniques to actually sustain your business and be more profitable. If you're not just constantly, not reusing or finding ways to reutilize some things, talk to your kitchen, talk to your purveyors, the farmers and people that you deal with, you probably work with, there's ways to kind of be very creative and push the boundaries. And then it's also just setting up good systems and habits. I think a lot of sustainability is just like, it's not really that hard just to like actually separate your recycling and your, whatever, like, so try to have your, set up those systems early on, have your waste bin where bottles can go in and they can be bus tubbed out. We accommodate so many other things, but yet, I think think the small efforts are not going to happen. So just, there's lots of resources online, find those out, always reach out to your local community and see what resources they offer for businesses as well, who might be taking a more carbon neutral footprint, and try to incorporate those little by little, like to start with some sort of things. When you really manage that, move on to the next part.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. The next one is rum.
Poppin.
Poppin.
I love rum. You're talking
some rum.
Right?
Love it. And then the last one is influencers and micro influencers.
I'm gonna go with drop in. I think I think to have real influence at the end of the day, it's people actually doing things rather than just
being
showing themselves doing things.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, to be fair, because there's so many people now that are influencers, but it's like, but what do you have behind that? What experience do you have, and actual real life kind of morals do you have building up that influence? That concludes what's popping or dropping. So thank you so much, girls, for joining me and Flavor Blaster today. I've enjoyed talking to you so much. Is there anything that you want to say before we end this interview?
I'm really excited. We're obviously, COVID is not completely gone yet. We're still in it. But Lynnette and we had our first Speed Rack event in basically a year and a half, first in-person one in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago. And we're going to have our season 9 US finals. And I'm really excited to get back across the pond, do a UK one again, and like really start to see what Speed Rack can do, not just in the United States, where so much has happened in the last 10 years, but to continue to explore the impacts we can have in like places like Mexico or like Russia or something like this. So yeah, that's mine.
No, that's so exciting. And say if anybody does want to get involved or reach out to Speed Rack, what's the best way to do that?
Our Instagram is very active. So if you find us on Instagram, you can DM there as well. And we're always checking on it there. But yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. We're excited to get back to community. But lots of love goes out to our Australian counterparts who are now feeling a bit of a tough time, and we miss them.
Yeah.
And we're just ready for again that, like, it's good to have some community and get back together, and just to see how incredibly tenacious the competitors were, and how much just courage and intention there is. It's just nice to see the community get back together.
I love that. That's such a good closing remark. See, you could do it so much better than me. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll put all of your Instagram handles and everything on the screen. And yeah, thank you so much, girls, for joining me.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll keep in touch with you.
Awesome. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one.
You too. You too.
Thanks for watching, and make sure you hit the like and subscribe button for more content. If you want to check out Flavor Blaster, you can check us out on our website or our social media pages.